All right, everybody, welcome back to the Foundations for Infinite Returns. This is Module 8. Now, you've already gone through 7 of these, so you know the disclaimer, but the disclaimer is very simple. Remember, this is not designed to retire you. These modules are built to give you the foundation of what you need to know going forward so you can take the next steps and you can really understand some of the higher end concepts going forward. Now, this one is all about price. How do you set your price? How do you make sure that everything in your environment, you're getting the most value, you're getting the most dollars, all of that. Now, so just in case you don't want to watch half an hour of another Foundations course, here's a basic idea. You set the price based on what the market's willing to pay. If you came up to me and said, here's a pencil and someone's willing to buy it for $75 billion, you sell it for $75 billion. But you have to understand your market. There's a lot of things that go into that. There's a lot of different strategies. I'm going to try and do my best to cover as many of these. Remember, these are just broad overviews. All of the foundation modules are not going to be in-depth, full-blown breakdowns. They're going to introduce you to a lot of these concepts that regrettably weren't taught to us in school in any way, shape, or form. So here we go. Let's get into it. Module 8, picking the right price. Now, as we go through, most business owners face one specific problem. How do you set your prices? How do you set your products? What do you get for your offerings? It's not an easy question to answer, but we're going to go through a lot of the methods in order for you to see and choose the one that is the most effective. Now, here's the catch. These methods are going to change. The one that worked for you last summer is not going to be the one that works for you going forward. You're going to have to operate and move your stuff around based on your client. We used to call this the marble effect. In other words, if I walked in and I was pitching my services and the floors were made out of marble, they were going to get a very different price compared to someone whose floors were just made out of carpet. It's just the nature of the beast. You have to understand your market. Remember, don't fight the market. The market will tell you what it wants, and then you have to work through there. So, here we go. While it's important to get the price right, if you're undercharging for your products and services, you're going to get married to that price for a very long time and you will lose an income stream, right? Your revenue. Because remember, we're not just talking about the prices. We're always talking about cash flow. We're always talking in net, not gross. Remember, gross is the total amount of money you bring in. People come to me all the time like, oh, I made $10 million last year. I'm like, great. How much did you take home? Oh, like $50. I'm like, you did not make $10 million, fucker. You made $50. Always want to think about the net, okay? It's important. There's lots of pricing strategies we're going to go over, and the fact that they change based on short-term or long-term, it's key to understand these fundamentals. These fundamentals are unbelievably important for what you're going to be doing going forward. So let's get into it. Value versus pricing. There's a huge difference between value and pricing. They mean very different things. Your price will affect your perceived value. And your perceived value will affect your price. It's just the nature of the beast and how it works. In short, value is relative. Price is absolute, right? People could believe that the value of my BMW is $1 bazillion, but they're only going to pay me X amount of dollars for that car. They could believe my value as priceless, but they're not willing to pay me more than $25,000 for my services. You have to understand the difference. It's really important. Value is relative, price is absolute. Now, there's several different pricing methods that we're going to determine. There's a lot of them, so please understand, I want you to take a look at all of them because some of them are going to fit different offers, right? Some are going to fit services. Some are going to work for individual products, for hard products that you can hold. They're all over the place. And I want to make sure that you guys are clearly understanding to look at all of them before you decide which one is the best. So anyway, let's keep rocking and rolling. So cost, price, it's so hard to do this sometimes. Cost plus pricing. This is a very specific model, right? With cost plus pricing, it's very simple. If your costs are $20 and you charge $21, well, there's your profit. Really simple. Cost plus. Now, what do your costs include? Well, everything. Raw materials, labor, overhead, rent, insurance, employee benefits, so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. This is the simplest and probably the oldest one on the planet. Whatever your costs are, add a little bit more on top of it, and magically that's your price. This is the most rudimentary, okay? If you're in this situation, you're just racing to the bottom because someone's going to find a way to reduce their overheads, which is what their costs are, and they're just going to beat you. Just understand that. Number 2, fixed versus variable. There's 2 kinds of costs to consider. Fixed versus variable cost. In your pricing model, you have to understand that fixed costs stay the same no matter what, right? This is rent or employee salaries. Variable cost changes based on what's going on in the market. Let's say you build furniture. Well, you know what your employees and what your machines and what your rent is going to cost for the places where you build that. But right now we know here in the United States, we're having prices for wood skyrocket. It's at least 4 to 6 times the amount. So people who are homeowners and people who are home builders are starting to realize they can't build and do what they want to do because the demand is increased, right? You understand supplies and demand. If there's 1,000 apples and only 10 people that want to buy them, well, supply and demand. That's going to be a really cheap price. If you reverse that and there's 10,000 people and only 10 apples, well, those apples are going to be really expensive. Right? That's supply and demand. You have to understand that these variable costs are going to change your environment. Now, I'll teach you guys using OPM and OPT how you can dramatically reduce even your fixed costs. However, that's more advanced. For now, I just want you to understand there is a difference between fixed versus variables when you're considering how to price these things out. The next pricing method is value-based pricing. Now, we've talked a lot about value in this course. You have to understand, being clear on the value that you're offering, what you're doing is helping the customer eliminate their pain. That's where they believe perceived value is, right? They want to be very clear that this is the best value for it. I had a client, they just hired me because they're a couple. They initially came to me for business changing. Within 10 minutes of the conversation, I had ripped apart their entire marriage. And they're like, oh my God, we need to hire you for this because we can't fix our businesses because our relationship is so messed up. That is a perceived value. They will pay more for that because they have paid other people lots of money. I got them to pivot around. Now, once you go from there, the value helps someone understand what to buy based on their needs, right? From there, you're aiming for them to find the right fit from what you offer to what they really want. Now, we always focus on pain. What is the pain that this delivers, right? How does it get rid of pain out of someone's life? Remember, people do not buy products and services. They buy stories, identities, and ways out of pain. Say it again with me. People do not buy products and services. They buy stories, identities, and ways out of pain. If you haven't been able to say that instantaneously by now, take a pen out, pause the video, and write that on the top of your hand every day for the next week. You have to understand fully. People do not buy products and services. They buy ways out of pain. They buy stories, they buy identities. When someone buys a BMW, they're telling a different story than when someone buys a Prius. When someone buys a $5,000 Louis Vuitton bag, they're telling and feeding a different identity or a different version of themselves. Remember, personas. Someone's feeding that in a different way. This is why you have to determine the value first and highlight what's unique about your product. Remember, we talked about this in one of the earlier modules. What is your new unique selling proposition? What makes you unique? What makes you special? How does that work? Then you can fixate, then you can focus, then you can move things around regarding your price, okay? Because this is based on perceived value. Doesn't have to be real. For example, take a Volvo, right? A Volvo is the safest car on the market. Ooh, I'm going to buy a Volvo. It's $70,000. Really? If I go buy a $30,000 Tesla, it has the highest ranking of any crash test that's ever been done ever. But Volvo is still perceived, and that value is a perceived value because the market hasn't moved yet. Even though a Tesla is a safer vehicle in crashes than a Volvo is. Just the nature of the beast. Okay, moving on. Number 4, competitor-based pricing. This model is based when you analyze your competitors and the market conditions and set prices accordingly. In other words, what's the going rate? If all the lawyers in your surrounding area are charging $500 an hour and you go in and you charge $100 an hour, you are going to be perceived as less valuable. Doesn't matter how cheap it is. You now have made it too cheap, so be careful with that. But if the rest of the market's charging $500, you want to stay in that kind of environment. Remember, don't undercut it. If you undercut it, they'll just see you as cheap because everything that's sold at Walmart isn't necessarily cheap. Everything that's sold on Alibaba is not necessarily cheap. But the stuff that's sold at Louis Vuitton, God knows isn't worth $30,000. It's a bag. It doesn't do anything. Oh my God, what is wrong with you people? That's a different story altogether. You're offering your product and your service must be slightly higher price, but remember, you're going to be higher priced in the market. You better have perceived value. Okay, it's really, really important. We got to see this in the minor leagues here in baseball. If someone paid less money for a pitcher, he would play less than the person who got paid more money. Even if the person who got paid less was pitching better and had a better run, they still would go to the guy that they're paying more money for because it's perceived value. So, what's your homework? You need to sit down on a sheet of paper and you need to write down the pros and cons of each one of these that I've already gone through. You're like, what? I can't just watch? I have to do work? Yes, you have to pause the video and go to the big old workbook that we have. And you need to sit down. What are the pros and the cons? Then you need to go and research your closest competition in your niche. If you can get all the way down into your sub niche, that's even better. And you want to see what pricing, how they're modeling, how they're doing it, what is their ad spend, how do the ads look like. You want to do that. Then once you have all of that, go through the research and then take a look at what model you should use. Which one resonates with you? Which one's appropriate for your market? What's appropriate for your specific sub niche? You need to figure that out. Don't do one that you like to do because you're irrelevant. Remember that. You are irrelevant in this conversation. It only comes down to what the market is doing. Remember, price is what you pay. Value is what you get. It's a different conversation. So please understand that. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. From there, let's get into the pricing model. Let's talk about this. This is where we go into pricing in a different way. When someone charges for a service like coaching or consulting, you have a few different options. Number one, hourly. Don't do this. I'm telling you right now, don't do this. Do not charge hourly. Do not pay your staff hourly. It is a nightmare. Just don't do it. However, let's talk about it. It's here. I need to tell you guys about it. While it's nice because you get paid the time you put in, this isn't the ideal option. It trains your clients to believe that the value of your coaching lies on the time that you put in with them, not the results you get for them. I'm paid for the results I get for them, right? The real value is what you provide, not your hours. When you do this with employees, they will stretch out their time and slow down because they know they're getting paid hourly, not results. I do not like this method. Try to avoid it like the plague. Now, the next one you could do is retainer. This one was very, very powerful for me because what they're paying for here is security, right? What happens in a retainer is they pay you a fixed amount every month. So this is what it is every month. So when I owned an IT company, we would supply IT services to a company for a fixed amount. If they used this 100 times that month, it didn't matter. If they used this one time that month, it didn't matter. It was the same price. We were rewarded for keeping things operational. They were buying security. So when I would tell them, like, listen, if you call me 1,000 times, I don't care. It's still the same amount. They were like, wait, really? I'm like, yeah, I know I'm good at what I'm doing. You're paying me to make sure the computers never go down, and we're going to go from there. They loved this model. We scaled this model because they were buying the elimination of pain. They were afraid that things were going to happen. So there's got to be certain boundaries with it. If I have to come on site more than 3 times and it's not my fault, you guys are just being goobers, that's a different ballgame. So that's the basic idea. So really, really important to understand the difference between a retainer and hourly. Retainers are very, very powerful. Option number 3 is service-based pricing. This is the final option, and it's based on in a set package. For example, a 3-month program with 12 calls, right? You get the situation where you allow them to choose and have flexibility based on what they're looking for, right? It completely shifts the conversation from what you're worth to the value of your time. So therefore, you're taking the retainer, marrying it with the hourly rate, and expanding it and giving them what's known as the illusion of control. So instead, it becomes about something more powerful. Your client gets the result they want, they get the help they want, and they get the value of the result that's given to them. They also get the illusion that they're being able to choose it. The only catch with this is if you're really good at your job and they don't use all 12 of the phone calls, they're going to want a refund. So please make sure you talk about that in advance. So it's really important. Okay. So what do you need to do in this situation? Again, set down a sheet of paper. I know I'm making you do work. I'm a horrible person. Yes, sit down, write down which one works. Do you want to do hourly? Do you want to do retainer based? How do you want to set it up? What is the pros? What are the cons? Again, then go research your competition. What are they doing? What works? And then based on your research, you then go through and you figure out the best one for you. So, how do you price your products? Now, this is different than what we just did, right? Before it was your services. Now we need to start pricing your products. Product pricing is essentially the element in determining the success of your product or your services. E-commerce entrepreneurs only consider pricing as an afterthought. Pricing is not an afterthought. It is one of the first things you need to do. They copy other people, they copy their content. This is a horrible idea. Now that you have a basic understanding, it's time to apply these concepts and get to work. You need to find your base price. Your base price is getting to know your common strategies of your industry. Again, strategy 1, cost-based pricing. This is one of the simplest one, is call-based. It's basically your cost plus some. Really simple. We just talked about this. This is where this comes into play. Remember, now we're taking all the things together from value and pricing and we're combining them together. And it's going to sound like I'm being redundant. I'm not. I gave you overviews and now we're breaking it down. From there, when you're doing your cost base, this is how it looks, right? So this is, remember we talked about this. You have your fixed costs, you have your variable costs. Here's your material, here's your labor, here's your overhead, here's your total cost. This is the breakdown. I'm trying to give you guys more individual details so you know. You want to do it, and then you have to decide what your markup's going to be. Right? Let's say if you decide 50% over the standard industry is what you want to do for retail, you have to multiply your total cost times 50%, which would take you to $57 in this case. You have to go through and figure out what this is going to do, right? Really, really simple. From there is market-oriented pricing. This is often referred as competition-based pricing strategy. In other words, the seller sets a higher or lower price based on their competitors. This is purely based on that. Again, I would not recommend doing this. If you're hunting this, then they're going to turn around and do the same to you, and then you're just both racing to the bottom. Not a good idea. But here's how you do it. You can A, price above the market. This is where you're saying, listen, I'm going to price above, and I believe I have a higher quality and I have better marketing. Good luck. It's a method. It works, but you better have better product. You better have better marketing and better value. You violate either one of them, they're going to think you're ripping them off. The next one is sell your item as the same price. Don't ever do this. If you're going to do this, just put your computer down and go play in traffic. Really, really stupid to do this. There's no competitive value in this. It's stupid. The next one is below the market value of your price. In this situation, you are now racing to the bottom because as soon as you undercut them, they will undercut you, and so on and so on and so on. This is why marketing is so important to sales. If your marketing is just your pricing, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose so bad. Don't do that. But again, I've got to go through all these. The next one is dynamic-based pricing. This one's really important. It changes based on what the market's doing, right? In other words, the act of changing price multiple times through the day, through the week, based on what's going on, right? So this is based on their purchasing habits. If you go out and you buy a fire pit sheet, which is basically, if you have a fire pit and you put it underneath on the floor of a fire pit, basically, they'll be more expensive in May than they are in December. Because people use their fire pits in the beginning of spring and they're thawing out and they're doing all that. So the price of them skyrockets and it goes down later. Same thing with fireworks. Fireworks prices increase before holidays and they decrease for the rest of the year. Though it's called dynamic pricing. Now, tools for dynamic pricing. You need to be able to research this. You need to know when things are doing. You can use any of these three tools that are in front of you, right? Any of these work. They save you time. They save you energy. Go to them. Simple Google will take you to them. They work really, really well. Please use them. I'm begging you, please use them. Don't guess. Don't be like, well, I like to buy fireworks in March when there's nothing going on because it's cheaper. If you do that, you're going to lose. Remember, you're irrelevant to the conversation. Study the market, match the market, and go from there. The next thing you can do is discount pricing. Now, the discount pricing is really, really powerful if you actually do that, right? If you're actually showing a discount. Don't be one of those a-holes, i.e. Walmart, that says it used to be $9.97, but it's on sale now for $9.97. People will get pissed off and they'll pick on you. It is what it is. So, discount pricing strategy based on certain times. You use this idea for scarcity. Macy's does this all the time. They discount things and they're like, lowest prices of the season. This attracts new customers and you'll learn about loss leaders as we go on. The next one is we talk about loss leaders. Ta-da! The idea of loss leaders is to get you in the damn store. The most powerful one of these is Costco. Costco Wholesale sells their chicken at really cheap prices. I think it's like $4.99 or $5.99 a chicken. They lose millions of dollars selling their chicken. But in order to get the chicken, you have to walk through their entire store to the back of the store. And they're betting that on the way out, you're going to buy more stuff. The chicken's design is to get you inside the store. This happens all the time. If you want to see loss leaders in action, look at Black Friday. Black Friday is what happens after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving here in the United States is on Thursday. The day after it is they open the stores up at $0 and we call it Black Friday. The reason it's called Black Friday because it helps people get black, helps customers get the companies into the black, which means it takes them out of the red and gets them into the profit. That's why it's called Black Friday. It helps them, and you will get stuff at ridiculously cheap prices. They'll say, listen, we're giving away this 57-inch TV for $20, but we only have one. Get here soon. Oh, and there's other deals in the store as well.
And what happens? You have a stampede of capitalism and people get hurt and people die because they're idiots and they deserve to. If you're going to go to the store at $0 and you're going to try and save $100 and that's worth your life, then yeah, you deserve to die. You're an idiot. You're a moron. You should have been swallowed at birth. What's wrong with you? Anyway, loss leaders, they're important. Really, really powerful. If you're selling multiple products, loss leaders are huge. The next one you want to do is anchor-based products. Anchor-based pricing, really important. You need to make sure that you anchor things in based on what's going on. This is a great video where he offered and he did the price on stage.
The pundits were going to price it at under $1,000, which is code for $9.99. When we set out to develop the iPad, we not only had very ambitious technical goals and user interface goals, but we had a very aggressive price goal because we want to put this in the hands of lots of people. And just like we were able to meet or exceed our technical goals, we have met our cost goals. And I am thrilled to announce to you that the iPad pricing starts not at $9.99, but at just $499.
Now that's called anchor-based pricing. He went in and said, hey, it's normally going to cost $1,000. But wow, what an amazing deal. It's only $499. If he came to you initially and said, hey, you're going to buy this one screen, no keyboard, nothing else, and it's going to be $499, people are like, oh God, that's really expensive. But since he came in and he gave the higher anchor price in the beginning and then dropped it down, everyone thought, oh wow, that's really cheap. It could cost $1,000, but he's giving it to $499? That's amazing. Woohoo! Yay! That is called anchor-based pricing. People do it all the time. You hear it on TV, but act now, it's not $9.99, it's only $4.99. You hear it all the time because human beings are gullible, predictable morons. You can use these things, and this is called anchor-based pricing. Sorry, guys, we've all fell for it. We're all morons like that. So, what do you get to do? The same process as before. What pricing strategy do you feel works best for you? Elaborate on why you pick this pricing strategy above all else. Now, don't just be like, oh, I like this one better, or I think this one better. No, you better have researched your other people. You had better have gone through your competitors. You have already done split testing. You need to know this back and forth because when this doesn't work, your reasons are going to be the only thing that's going to help you survive. So, what do you do in this situation? That's your homework, right? I need you to go through question 1, question 2, and question 3 and get into it. Really vitally important. What is the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What are your competitors doing? Why did you choose this? Before you go forward, pause this video and say, holy crap, I really need to knock this out. I really need to know this. This whole section. This isn't just, hey, let's listen to Charles and listen to him yap. I need you to really stop, take a look, step back, and really figure this out. So, we need to talk about the price conversion rate as well. Right? Overhead expenses that you need to consider when you're pricing things out. So bonus, rent, manufacturing, facility costs, staff, personal taxes, personal income taxes, shipping costs, professional fees. There's all of these things. You need to calculate everything. Now people are like, oh, well, I need to calculate some. No. Everything. You forget one thing, trust me, your customer, you're not going to be able to go back to them and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I completely forgot. I have this new thing. I know I promised you it for $9.99. Could you give me an extra $50 because I need to cover this? There's not a customer on the planet that's going to say, oh yeah, sure, I understand. You forgot about your website maintenance costs. Not a big deal. Here you go. Never going to happen. Okay, never, ever is going to happen. Make sure you know your costs in advance. So, the next thing you need to do is you need to experiment with pricing. This is important. Now that you've gone through and you've decided which one you like, it's time to experiment, right? We've talked about how lowering prices can lead to the reduction in consumer surplus, right? We've talked about all these things. You've gone through the workbook. This is what's next to you. This is why I give it to you. You need to start testing these things out. You need to figure out what happens when you raise the price on your best-selling products. How do customers react? Do they get really pissed off? Do your products drop immensely? Because if I walked up and said, hey, this Rolex is $25,000, but I raised it to $27,000 starting the next year, do you think people are going to stop buying it? You think that extra $2,000 is going to stop them? The answer is no. It's probably not. So there is always profit for you to play with. I need you to be able to play with those. You then have another experiment that I want you to do. I want you to take advantage of seasonal or discount promotions. We do this all the time. One of my clients sells a specific product. In order to get those products, their raw materials, right? Their raw materials cost more. But a certain time of year, it doesn't. So he'll stock up on all of his raw materials at one time. This is called a sale. Take advantage of these. Use these for your customers. If we know this habit's built into them. Say, hey, I offer free shipping. Hey, 10% off this weekend. Play with those. See what they respond to. Do they respond to 10% off? Do they respond to free shipping? Do they respond to value ads, right? If you're selling bath soap, do they respond better to a free sample of something else? How do they respond? What does your market do? Really understand their buying habits. The next one, please, for the love of everything holy, do not model your competitors, okay? Just don't do it. There's always great strategies. There's lots of things to do. Always look forward in the market. Always try to create innovation. Don't just look back and compete with them. Yes, watch them. See what's doing well. And then look at how you can provide more value. The way you're going to win in any single one of these situations is if you provide more value. Remember, you're operating on your terms. It's your overhead. It might not be the same for them. They might have different overheads. They might have different profit margins. You really need to figure this out before you really decide your pricing. See, and you thought pricing was really simple. So I want you to experiment with it. I want you to take a list of 3 initial products and how you'd like to experiment with pricing. Do A/B testing. Now, what is A/B testing? A/B testing means I'm going to sell this product with this type of idea and this concept. That's concept A. And I'm going to do at the same time, do it with option B. So you're testing the market with 2 different experiments at the same time. Which one do they buy more of? Do they buy A? Do they buy B? You need to use variations, and then you need to implement whichever one wins, whichever one is better. You then go implement it through your entire store, right? And you just keep doing it, okay? Now we need to go into the type of pricing strategies. We've talked about pricing products, but what about services, right? We've already done this for your specific products, and there's a lot going on here, guys. I know it seems like I'm going quickly. I know there seems a lot, but you guys already complained that I created 2-hour videos, so I'm trying to go quickly, and this is why we give you the workbook. The next thing that you want to talk about is penetration pricing. The first pricing strategy that's available to you is penetration pricing. The goal is to penetrate the market. For new coaches, for new services, this is why Infinite Returns initially was $27. We penetrated in with the market. We then brought it up to its price that it is now. You have to be able to get in there, get the first clients in there, get phenomenal testimonials, get revenue in there, start building brand recognition, start getting those testimonials and leveraging them. You're going to lose money at first. It's the nature of the beast. It sucks. No one likes it, but it's the only way to get in there. You have to penetrate the market. This is why you have big sales. Next one is number 2 is necessity. Once you've gotten your first clients, you then move it up to what is the price that you need to do in order to basically cover your costs, right? Now that you got clients, now that you got testimonials, now that you have that, you need to go into what is our nut. This is what it costs. This is what it is where I can pay my bills and things are doing well and we can move forward. Don't try and go, hey, I'm only going to coach people for $10,000. We have someone in our group who does yoga. And she's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sell my thing. I'm $10,000. I'm like, how many clients do you have? She's like, none. I'm like, how many testimonials do you have? She's like, none. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You're a moron. You need to go get testimonials. So you need to go work for free. Go get those 7 to 10 testimonials of people going, oh my God, this is amazing. It's the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I did yoga and I saw the face of God. It's that good. Then you can price what you're worth, right? But remember that the market doesn't know what you're worth. You're just another person in the market making noise. You need to differentiate yourself, break through all that noise and become the signal. You do that through testimonials. Once you get to level 1 and you get that penetration pricing, you then move up to necessity. You don't go from penetration pricing from $27 a month to $27,000 a month. You have to work your way up. You slowly raise your price, and that's price strategy number 2 is necessity. Price strategy number 3, you choose it, right? This is your nuts. Go nuts. Find out if the market will pay you $27,000. Find out if it'll pay you $10. You need to understand what you're going. In short, you're able to have your basic funds and your basic money covered, then you can go play in a different ballgame. This is what allows me to charge some of my clients an extraordinary amount of money and other clients less. This is where you are, but you have to follow these steps, right? There are less of strategies and more of steps. So what do? What is the initial price that you need to do that you know people will actually do the work so you can actually get the testimonial? Then you list the 3 names of your clients. You go through, you get them for the social proof. I'd recommend getting at least 7, but here we go. And then you move on to the next step. Really, really simple in here. Go through these things step by step. There's a lot of stuff here. I know it's not sexy. This is not a sexy section. You're like, hey, we learned about pricing today. Yoo-hoo. This is not a sexy section, guys. I get that. But it's important for you to go through each one of these steps. Every time we gave you one of these section activities, every time I gave you these type of things, I need you to stop. I need you to go through it. I need you to say, what is my offering? What is my product? What is my service? What is the market doing? And then start testing these things. You're not just going to set your price and be like, okay, this is how much it is. Goodbye. It's going to change. It's going to change with the market. It's going to change what the audience is doing. It's going to change with your competitors. Knowing all these things is vitally important so you can take those next steps, so you can move forward and go from there. There's a lot of homework here, guys. There's a lot of steps you need to do. Print out the workbook. Go through it. Make sure that you've already gone through the other modules. There's already 7 modules before this. Make sure you're doing this step by step by step, and I will see you guys in the next one.